I think I must have been 7. You said you were 4, right?
4 or 5.
I think I was probably, I think I probably would have been in second grade.
4 or 5.
Yeah, in my case, a little older, maybe like 7. Since I remember, I'd been fooling around folding paper in a kind of an aimless kind of way just to see what I could do, and then some after-school opportunity to fold origami at my elementary school came up. I think Mrs. Finkelstein, I think, had a half hour after my second grade afternoon. We'd sit down and just do some very, very, very simple folds, nothing practically purulent. I was so taken by just the order and symmetry of it that went home and started folding the napkins at dinner. Since then it kind of took off into a hobby. I'm 30 now, and I've folded pretty consistently since then, although, those early years were just a flurry of activity for me, just buying all these books, folding everything I could think of, and, if sit me down in a room by myself with a piece of paper, I'll be folding. It just was the default thing for my hands to be doing for a while. I'm no longer like that. Now origami's more cerebral for me and less of just a way to idly pass the time. I basically only fold when I'm with folding friends, as a community. Oh gosh, you have the old edition. I lent somebody my copy of this book and never got it back, and now it's out of print. You're lucky. Don't lend that book out. It's a really good book.
I just wanted something to do, and then I went to the library and found this paper folding book. And once I had done every one in that book, then I just went on to the next, onto harder books, and then I got to this book, which has another copy in the Takoma Park Library, and has a different cover than my version, and I just kept checking it out, and my mom's got tired of having to go to the library like the day right after it was due, and so they just got me this for my birthday, and I think it's the only one I've been using so far.
Somehow origami just seems to work best if you want to create something of a very geometric form like this.
You go to any city in the world practically, certainly in America, there's the knitting group over here, there's the ceramic group right behind me, and then there's the origami group. It's almost an invisible subculture if you're not looking for it, but I mean the material is so readily available and it's such a rewarding activity. It really is a community activity for me now more than when I was younger. If you want to make a modular, I know one that uses 6 sheets, so that would probably only take a few minutes. The most challenging aspect of origami is designing anything. I mean, there's a certain joy in reproducing the designs that are, written down in a book. That's wonderful. It's a joy to do it, but it's lacking a certain element of originality from the point of view of the person folding it, and you say, ultimately the name attached to this thing I just folded is the guy whose name is on the front of the book, the designer. And the next step is to try and do what they do. And that's a big jump to make. It's, there's a whole science behind these designs and the whole analytical process of thinking, since, when you fold origami, in general, the paper doesn't start to resemble what your subject is until the last few steps. It looks very abstract and geometrical until you get there, and it's a bit mysterious how you come up with something like that. But it is more and more these days a codified science, and more people are getting into it younger and younger, into the design part of it. Okay, so this butterfly, it's got wings that are 2 different colors.
It just gives me something to do. I usually like challenging origamis because I don't really like just doing easy ones, because then I waste all my paper on easy things. In this book, my favorite book, the 1-star, which are the easiest ones, are actually harder than the 4-star in the first book I got.
There's a designer named Michael Assis who has some very nice work. I've been folding his things recently, but only when he teaches in a class. He creates very complex things that probably take a few hours to complete, and you have to start with a large piece of paper because of the amount of detail involved, so that it's on a scale that you can actually work with. He does these compound subjects. Compound subject means that even though you're starting from one piece of paper and you're not cutting it, nonetheless, the finished result is almost like a diorama. It's got multiple elements that work together to create a scene. For example, I made something by Michael Assis that was a man sitting on a park bench reading a book underneath a tree. And the way it was designed was the piece of paper had been sectioned, the folding pattern had devoted this much of the paper shall be the tree, and so forth. And then it all had to collapse down into a final form that was simultaneously compatible with all the elements. Design is mind-boggling, and I would never be able to do something like what he does. But those are my recent favorites. It looks like we have like 6 polygons that actually cross through a common point in the center. This is a more, geometrically inspired abstract modulars. For me, and I think that probably I speak for a lot of people, the finished product, the finished model as an objet, like an objet d'art, sure, it can be beautiful and stunning to look at, but it doesn't really just stand on its own in terms of pure form, because a lot of the mystery is in the process of creating it. And that when you go to an exhibition like the one here at the community center and you look at some beautiful works of origami, you have to distinguish in your mind that, this isn't just some cut and paste sculpture. It's not a paper mache. This had to be worked out very cleverly according to all the constraints of the medium. The full appreciation of a work of origami comes from trying to reproduce it, which is why it's so joyful to just buy books and make other people's forms. You're marveling. This is almost more like looking at someone else's art and really fully appreciating it on the deep level of how did they come up with this. You look at a modern origami insect. It's very detailed. It looks very realistic. It could have been done in another medium without going through the hassle of having to work out mathematically how do we get the paper into this configuration without cutting it. But then you lose that entire element of what makes it special. In some sense, looking at origami is especially special if you are a hobbyist in origami. My favorite works of origami are those which sort of betray to the casual observer that they are origami and how they were put together. The most realistic things that almost fool you into thinking it's, a taxidermied animal, it's so realistic, those impress me, but I prefer the ones that are a little bit simpler because they look more like origami and the casual observer will immediately come to the conclusion about how it was constructed, and that is even more stunning to me. Now it's like a bow. Bumper butterflies. On guard!